Some people look like they just blew up overnight, but that overnight success was 15 years in the making. And they have like 15 years of ups and downs that you might not be privy to. Sometimes we do have to just sit down and check ourselves because it's so easy to like look at somebody else's journey and compare it to yours. And sometimes you just have to trust the process and go through it. And also understand that everyone's journey is not the same. Sometimes you're getting better at something, but you don't realize it. And you don't realize it until you look back at how far you've come. Talent made room for me in spaces that I would have never been able to foresee. You are walking in the path that you're supposed to walk, and your time will come. You just have to work for it. Hey, y'all, this is Helena Faustin, and you are listening to Dreams in Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 314 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And I am so excited for you all to hear from today's guest, Helena Faustin. And she's going to be sharing her journey of how she built her online community at That Nurse Can Cook. She's someone whose story I think is going to be especially inspiring to you all because get this, Helena is a registered nurse. She works at a top-ranked children's hospital in New York City, but she also creates delicious home-cooked island food, healing souls one meal at a time, and she shares that journey and those recipes and those inspirations online with her community. And over the past year, she has grown her following, and I think her story is one that you all will find very, very encouraging, that you don't always necessarily have to choose this or that, right? You can take an interest, a passion of yours, pursue it and see where it takes you. And that's the biggest learning and takeaway that you all will definitely get from listening into Helena's story. Personally, I was just ecstatic to be able to sit down with Helena and just learn a little bit more about the why, the how, and parts of her story that you guys may not know. If you enjoy this episode, I'm asking that you share it. Remember, we are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, so make sure you're posting this and sharing Helena's story with your own audience because I'm definitely sure they can be encouraged and inspired as well. And lastly, guys, if you want to join our email newsletter, The Keys, and get weekly email updates via email, just sign up at dreamsanddrive.com/join. All right, let's hear from Helena.
Hey, Raina. Thank you for having me today. I'm so thankful to be here on your podcast.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you guys on the show. And for you guys listening in, you know that I love having guests on the show that I personally have been following and just am encouraged and inspired by their journeys. So you guys are going to meet Helena Faustin today. You're going to learn all about that nurse that cooks, right? That nurse that
cooks. Yes.
Yeah. So I love to start our interviews going back in time, right? And I know this is a big part of your story, growing up as a child, right? And growing up in New York, right? So tell me about what was inspiring you as a child. Like, what were your dreams as a young Helena?
So, I get this question a lot, and I always tell people, when you come from a traditional Caribbean household, sometimes they don't always see beyond college, stable job, pension, and all that stuff. So the truth is, I never really saw a career in cooking because I was always taught to crave that stability. So I always knew I wanted to be in the medical field, even when I was a child.
Really?
So, yeah, I always knew that I was either going to be a nurse or a doctor, something to do with the medical field, because I was always just fascinated by the human body and things like that. But I went to college. I went to LIU in Brooklyn. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in nursing, and I really did not see a career in cooking until I started sharing some of my food and some of my recipes online with my friends and family. And one of my friends was just like, you know what, maybe you should start a food blog and share your recipes with everybody. And, you have no idea how it may take off. I've always had an interest in cooking, even from the age of 15. I just watched my mom in the kitchen and I was like, how do you do that? Or like, show me how you do that. And the truth is, cooking really came natural to me. And it was something that I always enjoyed.
All right, so I'm gonna tease you here a little bit, right? Let's go back to before 15. Let's go back to, let's say, 8-year-old, 9-year-old Helena. Before, even though you wanted to be like, you always had interest in the medical field, like what was exciting to you about the world? Like what was, if I could say young Helena, your personality was like this, like what do you remember about growing up and being like a young child?
You know what? I think from a very young age, I have always had a natural ability to relate to people.
Mm.
And I think that that relatability has stuck with me throughout my life. And it's a part of my success today.
Sometimes you don't realize like you've always had this theme, right? Of like
Right.
action.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That is so true. Like I've always, I was always a friendly person. I was always outgoing. I was never shy. I was never afraid to speak in front of a large group. I never had stage fright or anything like that. So I guess it was like a little bit of, God just preparing me for the life that he saw for me in the future.
So beyond wanting to go into the medical field, what did you ever like say, this could be interesting? Or was that pressure from, I know Caribbean straight up, right? Doctor, lawyer,
Yes.
whatever. Like I studied sociology in school. My grandma was like, wait, you want to be a social worker? I said, no, my grandma, that is not what sociology is. But do you ever feel like, looking back that you wish you would have done something different? Or did you really, really like the path of going into the medical field?
Oh, I have zero regrets. Even today, I still love being a nurse, honestly. Of course, with any job, it comes with its ups and downs. Sometimes, especially working through the pandemic, it was very hard for a lot of my colleagues and myself. So there's always that element of burnout that you have to constantly battle with. But I have zero regrets. Even when I became a nurse, I knew that this was what I wanted to do. I was actually a bank teller when I was in college.
Well, let's talk about that because I think it's interesting getting to where we are today, right? So you were a bank teller while you were like in nursing school, or?
Yes, okay. I bank tellered my way through college because, when you don't come from a background of privilege, you literally have to work and go to school at the same time. Yep. So it was my mom who suggested, like, why don't you just get a job as a bank teller? Like, the pay is really good. It's not too strenuous and you can do it part-time and go to school full-time and still have money in your pocket. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I started working out at North Fork Bank, which eventually became Capital One Bank.
Okay.
And I worked there for like maybe a year and a half. And then I left that bank and I went to TD. And I was working at TD Bank right up until I graduated nursing school. So I was like in two different worlds. I would be going to clinicals from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., like in the hospital, learning my meds, learning my assessment, writing my care plan. And I would literally walk into the bank with my scrubs on, change into my teller uniform in the bathroom and come back out on the teller line and be like, hello, good afternoon.
That's so interesting though, Helena, because you know what I'm thinking about? You kind of always knew how to navigate between two. I wouldn't say bank telling was like a passion of yours, right? But it was something that you were learning how to do. What do you think were some of like the biggest skill sets or approaches to just work in life that you learned in the bank specifically?
You know why I really liked that job? And I'm so glad you asked that question because there are times, like I want to say, like on my hardest shift ever, there are some times where I think about what my life would look like had I stuck with a career in banking. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that I would have been successful in that path, but I just didn't have the passion for it. And what I learned while I was there was how people manage their money.
And look, that's important, right?
And you know what? And it was so sad. And it's like a lot of the current themes you see today and the disparities amongst wealth and how it's distributed and people's attitude towards money were incredibly relevant. And I saw it with my own two eyes when I was working at the bank. So I really learned how millionaires manage their money, and I learned how the blue collar worker managed their money as well.
You know what? I'm gonna push you here too, because tell us, was there something,
Yes.
was there what's the word, like a theme, or were there certain things that you saw that they were doing that you were like, hey, when I get to this position in my life, I want to make sure that I'm setting myself up this way? Because I think it's something that we don't talk about enough, right? The money aspect.
Of course. Yes, most definitely. And I do want to tell you that one thing that I learned as I was growing and blossoming as an entrepreneur is to always negotiate. And I think that we've always been conditioned to be obedient sometimes. And sometimes we see negotiation as disobedient. And we try to like put it, it's been framed as pushing back. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And not having respect, right? Like,
and being disrespectful. Like we're taught like, just pretty much accept what someone tells you. And I do want to say, working at the bank, I want to tell you this.
All right.
The millionaires never wanted to pay the $5 money order fee. The millionaires never wanted to pay the $10 bank check fee.
Did they?
They would be like, are you, excuse me? They would walk up in there and they'd be like, I have X amount of dollars in this bank. I am not paying $10 for a bank check. And mind you, they had the money. They could more than afford it.
It's nothing to them. $10 is a penny to them.
It's nothing to them. But they would always, and sometimes it's not even the millionaires. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's middle class, but they're like upper middle class. They would always say, oh, it's a $10 bank check fee. Well, can you waive it? Can you waive it this one time? And me, I would never ask for something like, I would never, if you tell me like the fee is $10, I'm like, okay, here. And what I know is that blue collar workers and the middle class workers, they never asked for a favor. They never asked us to waive a bank check fee. They never asked, but the people who had the money asked. So I also learned, that was one important thing that I learned, to always ask.
Yeah.
Always ask, and never be afraid to say, well, is this negotiable? Like, what can I get out of this situation? And I feel like it's unfortunate because those who have the money to pay for it were not paying for it. And the people who really and truly deserve the discount weren't getting the discount.
Well, hopefully someone who's listening in right now is going to go and advocate for themselves the next time, like, right?
I was watching Dreams and Drive. And
Helena told me, she said, I worked it out, waived it. And, was it hard to waive stuff for people? Or was it like something that took a lot of work on your end? Or was it something like, okay, we can waive it?
Waiving fees was above and beyond my pay grade.
Okay.
So,
but you just thought they were doing it.
Yeah, it was always something that I had to bump up to a manager. And a lot of the times the managers would be like, all right, yeah, like, just waive it.
There's so much that we're leaving on the table sometimes, especially as entrepreneurs.
Right. And I feel like I need to empower more blue collar workers and more middle class workers to speak up and say, hey, I've been a customer of this bank for 10 years, for 15 years. This is the first time I'm getting a bank check. Can you waive this fee for me?
Right.
And they should be able to get it waived. I believe they should be able to get it waived.
They should. One thing I love about your journey is just how much passion you do have as a nurse, right? So you're a NICU nurse, right?
Thank you. Yes.
And I read I think it was an article, or it was a video that came out about you, how you really talked about how nursing was part of your identity, right? And I want people who are listening to this today to realize, like, you can have multiple passions. At no point of your journey, like you said, like, I hate nursing. Like, nursing is something you love.
Right.
What was it about nursing that really helped build that as part of your identity?
I think it's really the care aspect. Okay. Nurses spend the most time with the patients. Like, doctors will come in, they'll do an assessment, make a recommendation, write orders, but they don't really spend the same amount of time that nurses do. And the NICU is so very different from any other specialty because a lot of our patients are there for a very long time. We don't have a very quick turnover. It's not like the emergency room where patients come in, they get seen and they're discharged within 24 hours. Our patients stay with us sometimes for months on end. So you really develop a connection, not just with that baby, you develop a connection with their parents and their families. And it's really that love, that attention, that bond, that care aspect that is what really kept me going. And just seeing babies meet milestones and watching them overcome all these challenges and watching them go home, it's just so rewarding. There's there's no amount of money you could pay to, just receive that feeling of it's so gratifying to see a baby go home with their parents after being in the ICU for so long.
Was there anything about the world that you learned through nursing? Just like an observation about what it means to be a human, what it means to, I guess, have dreams, right?
Oh my gosh. Listen, I get so emotional when I think about all of the families that I've come across. And I am not the same person that I was when I first started out my career. I have seen the worst things you could imagine. And I've seen how people deal with stress. I've seen how people respond to trauma. And I've seen how people problem solve when when things are beyond their control. Because I think as humans, we naturally crave control. We want to be in control of everything. And different people respond differently to different situations. And I've gained a whole new respect for life. I just respect life. I respect how precious it is, how valuable it is. I respect women. I respect mothers. And I can go on and on. I can go on and on, but this job has really, really, really gave me a deep respect for humanity.
Well, as you were talking, the thing that I was thinking about, so you may not know this, but and people who are listening may know this part of my story as well. So I was, when I was 10 months old, I was in a really bad car accident with my mom and my dad. And I spent, I want to say I don't know how many months, but I want to say a few weeks or a few months I don't think 10 months, would it be NICU or would it be pediatric?
It would be a pediatric ICU.
Well, I was in there, right? And I had a fractured skull as a baby. And first of all, I want to say the work that you guys do with children is so important. And the other thing that I'm realizing too is you never know how life can change, right? In one instant. And it's funny because I didn't even realize the connection with this podcast, Dreams and Drive, when my life almost ended in a car, right?
Wow.
This big full circle moment. And now I have this platform called Dreams and Drive. Didn't realize the connection till years later. I'm wait, girl, you named your podcast Dreams and Drive and you almost
That's not by mistake. And my husband always tells me God puts an idea in your mind for a reason. There's always a reason.
Yeah. And so just hearing you talk, I'm just saying there's just so much that you don't realize how one thing could change your life. You go in because you have this passion for nursing. You see just the importance of people, humanity, the world. And at the same time, I feel did it ever for you make you feel I want to explore other things as well? And I say that because you said that, while you were nursing, you realized you started blogging, right? So talk to me about the inspiration and how nursing led or how that led you to a new passion. Hey, Dream Drivers. I'm all about adventure and dream driving, so I want to let you know about family-friendly fun you need. This summer, Disneyland Resort invites you to celebrate soulfully at the happiest place on earth. Here are my picks of what you definitely want to check out. From June 1st to July 4th, you can enjoy Celebrate Soulfully offerings that coincide with Black Music Month. Disney California Adventure Park is offering live music, celebrating the sounds of doo-wop and Motown, and Downtown Disney District has the Soul of Jazz, an American adventure, a touring exhibit that illustrates the legacy and dynamic history of jazz. Y'all know I'm a foodie, so something I check out in downtown Disney District is the Creole cuisine at Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen. And if you're not into that, discover new faves from Black-owned food trucks. There are so many ways to feed every part of your soul throughout Disneyland Resort this summer. Theme park admission and park reservations are required for park entry. Visit Disneyland.com for more details.
The truth is, cooking and creating my blog became an outlet for me to deal with burnout.
Yeah.
Because a lot of ICU nurses deal with burnout. There are a lot of factors that exist when you do your job. And sometimes it's not always a matter of you being able to just be a nurse, because we wear so many hats. And nobody wears our hat. So it's like,
we can't, right? I can't pretend to be a nurse. You can't.
Exactly. So, we deal with a lot. When it between, sometimes it's staffing, sometimes it's administration, sometimes it's dealing with difficult families, sometimes it's not having the tools that you need in order to do your job the right way or the way you would see fit. And a lot of those things factor into burnout. Sometimes when you work in a traumatic setting where you're exposed to a lot of trauma, you become a victim of something they call compassion fatigue. And sometimes you are literally so drained that you become numb. And a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, the nurse was so cold, or the doctor was so cold. A lot of those people are displaying like a maladaptation to trauma, and they've become cold because they have compassion fatigue. It's literally impossible for you to pour all of your being into every single patient that you come across, because you leave yourself depleted.
And you have a family at home too, right?
Exactly. We have lives and we're human beings. We have to come home to a family. We have an entire life that exists outside of the four walls of the hospital. So a lot of my colleagues, as well as myself, dealt with burnout. And I didn't begin to get better until I said, I need to create something outside of this hospital that is going to allow me to channel this energy, channel the anxiety, channel the nervous energy, channel any negative feelings. You take all that energy, you put it into something that you're passionate about, and suddenly the problems of the hospital, I don't want to say that they disappear, but they don't consume you as much as it did. Go home. I don't want to go home at night thinking about, oh my God, did I remember to sign for this med? Oh my God, that person was so rude to me. Oh my God, I hope this mom. Oh my God, I forgot. Like, it's a lot of things that you go through. And one of my former managers, she told me when I was a baby nurse, she was like, you have to leave work at work. When you walk through these doors, that is your real life. And it was so hard for me to do as a baby nurse because, and I use the term baby nurse because I was a novice at the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel like, you have to pour everything in or else you're not doing a good job, which is not very true. So, creating my food blog and creating something that I could come home and work on was a way to, just battle that burnout and make sure that I didn't spend my home time thinking about work and think about what went wrong or what else I could have did.
So I ask everyone this, and the answer is usually the same, right? But let me ask you, Helena, when you first started the blog and, thinking about, I want to create videos, I want to be this, content online, did you ever imagine it would take you to where it has taken you?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The truth is, when I first started, it was just for fun. I was like,
2019, right? I just want to make sure.
I opened up my page in 2018 and I wasn't even really consistent with it. I was just like, this is just for fun. Like I'll post. And I was like, you know what? What do you think about actually sitting down, taking this really seriously and seeing where it can go? So in 2019, that was when I really said, you know what? Come up with a solid plan, come up with a content schedule, create your content, learn all that you can about social media growth, how to work with brands and things like that. Because now that at that time the voice in my head was saying, now that things are beginning to pick up, like I was growing a big community, I was saying, you're spending a lot of hours outside of work doing this. And you can't just keep doing this essentially for free.
Yeah.
Because then you'll be like hustling backwards. So I, really wanted to figure out a way to monetize my passion and figure out a way to supplement my income without having to do overtime at the hospital and like pull in more shifts. So that was when I really decided to like hone in on my craft and get better, invest in equipment, and opportunities just started coming. Some I networked my way through, and I just don't believe that anything is by accident or by coincidence. I am on a God-ordained path, and that's why I feel things have been working in my favor.
Would you say phase one of your journey was community building, or was it like just laying the foundation of what would you say? Let me not even put words in your mouth. What would you say phase one was, right? If you had to think about like your journey in phases, right? Phase one, what would be the title of that chapter?
Phase one is growth. I feel like every stage, there's growth in every stage, but phase one was really about growth. Growing myself as an entrepreneur, growing an online community, growing as a content creator, growing as everything, because everything was in the baby stages. There was so much I had to learn before I could become an expert at it.
So I know a lot of people listening in, they're like, listen, Helena, I've been having this flu bug for 20 years, right? And I have not grown, but you got almost like 500,000 followers. How did you do it? So if you can remember those early days, what do you think were the key levers that you were pulling that were helping to build community? Because a lot of us are really trying to build that community. What would be your community building tips?
My community building tips is, number one is relatability. People want to see themselves in your product. They want to know how your product or how your food, and your food is your product. You might think, oh, I'm just making rice and chicken. You're not making rice and chicken. The rice and chicken is the product that basically your whole brand is going to be identified by. So don't just see it as a recipe, see it as a product and see it as an opportunity to market that to your community. How is this how is this recipe going to change this person's life? And could they see themselves making this recipe? And sometimes I think one key aspect of my growth is, and I go back to this, is relatability. Like, who doesn't want a meal in 30 minutes? Like, you come home from work or you're on that day, you open up your food app, and by the time they add on all the delivery fees, your food is like twice the amount. Exactly. So everybody wants a fast recipe they could make in 30 minutes. So that's why I created my ebook, Dinner in 30. And it's like 15 recipes that you can make in 30 minutes. Simple, easy ingredients that everyone could find no matter where they live. And sometimes people want a little bit more, some recipes that are more involved. So that's how I developed my ebook, Irie Delights. And those are one of my best recipes. Like, I have rasta pasta in there and stuff like that. Very popular dishes that people always wanted to know how to recreate. That's something that I could say, really just focus on being relatable to your audience, and don't leave out strategy as well, because you have to bring the strategy along with you.
Ooh, let's talk strategy in 1 second. But I wanted to ask you about one thing I love about you is like just your name, right? Your name or Instagram, that nurse can cook. That also is like, oh, wait, this is somebody who is, let's say, has an identity, but also loves cooking. Hey, I'm a painter that cooks, right? Or hey, I can do this and also cook and show off my talents in other ways. So I like that part of your relatability as well.
Right. So it's just like, I wanted to create something that didn't just make me only one thing. Because I feel like most of us are not just one thing. We're many things. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a nurse, I'm a woman, and I can cook too. So that was just really a part of why I created that, because I'm like, I'm a nurse and I can cook too. And it's catchy. So when people see me in the street, they're like, that nurse can cook. It's like so easy. It's like you telling a friend, you follow that nurse that cooks. Like all you have to say is that nurse that cooks and people know exactly who you're talking about.
Yep. And then when you talk about strategy, what do you mean by that, Rex? I think we can define strategy in so many ways. Like maybe give us an example of something that was strategic in your brand building process or your dream driving journey.
When I say strategy, I want to say in terms of analytics, watching your analytics, analyzing those analytics, because you need to analyze the analytics. And you have to say, okay, why did this piece of content resonate with so many people? And how can I continue to duplicate that style of content to reach more people? And you say to yourself, my audience really likes it when I do X, Y, Z. So how can I continue to do that, build on it, and get even better so that they remain engaged and you also pull in a new audience? The second part of that is simply saying to yourself, when are my followers online? Are they online at 8:00 in the morning?
So it's important to actually be
exactly.
Yeah.
Or are they online more during the day? Okay, it's Saturday. What are most people doing on Saturday? They just got paid on Friday, so they're feeling kind of rich.
They're gonna buy oxtail. They're gonna buy oxtail on Saturday.
Exactly. Sundays. They're thinking more of Sundays are usually family days. It's more like home cooked meals, like a complete meal, stuff like that. Mondays, we're kind of regretting the weekend's decisions. we want to try to lighten things up a little bit. So, you always have to have your audience in mind. What are they doing? What's on their radar? What is everybody talking about? Hot topics. How can you use a hot topic to relate that to your food space or whatever product that you're selling? I think I do want to give one example. Last year we had what was it? These years start to get so jumbled up after a while. The time just flies. There was like this viral TikTok pasta. Okay. And it's not Caribbean food, but I felt like my audience might be interested on me putting my own twist on it. You understand?
Yeah.
So I decided to try my hand at it. I said, hey, what the heck? Everyone's doing it. Let me see what my audience thinks about me putting my own Caribbean twist or my own flair on this TikTok pasta. And it really resonated with them. And it did really well.
It's funny. So I'm struggling with that on my own page because I feel like, so I have a baby, a young son, and you probably know people love when you post your kids, right? Like they love seeing family, they love seeing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But it's also like, what's the balance between that, right? So my most viewed reel or my page is a video that I just randomly did of my dad and my son. And it was like, people love the whole grandpa and baby, right? But I'm like, that's not related to the dream driving brand. So now I'm thinking like, if you were an advisor, right? And you saw, all right, people like this type of content, but your main content is this, what kind of advice would you give to people who maybe go viral from something that isn't necessarily their main niche?
I just want to tell people, and a lot of people feel like, oh, I went viral by accident. It's not by accident. It's not by accident. You didn't put a lot of thought into it. And the reason why you didn't put a lot of thought into it is because it came so natural.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I love my dad and my son together.
Exactly. And I would tell you as an advisor is to use that opportunity to tie it into your story. People love a good story. People want to fall in love with your story. Who are you? What is it that you do? And why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
And I would say, like, even like the desire to create a better life for my family, or, just making sure that I continue to, instill what my dad taught into me. I want to pass that down to my child. And that's why I created this podcast.
Yeah.
Like, it all ties in because that's a part of your identity. That is who you are. So it's not just by accident. That really is who you are. And it's a part of your story. So never feel like, oh, like it was offshoot. Sometimes it is. Sometimes the algorithm just decides to bless you.
Let's go this way.
Day. Yeah, some days it just decides to bless you. So I'm not going to discount that. You have a story that's worth telling, and people are inspired by stories from people who they can relate to. So that's the advice that I would give you.
Hey, Dream Drivers. So you know how I start every show asking guests the same question. What inspired you as a child? What were your childhood dreams? I remember as a kid, a place I always wanted to visit was Disneyland Resort. Why? It always represented a place of dreams, a place of wonder, a place where imagination and creativity were put on a pedestal. It was just a magical and happy place. Well, guess what? Disneyland Resort can still be the place where you go to fulfill some of your childhood dreams. Disneyland Resort invites you to celebrate soulfully this summer at the happiest place on earth. And yes, you can bring the family too. There's just so many things and so many types of dreams you can put in motion. Let me give you a little taste. If you have little ones, you can inspire their own dreams by rediscovering and celebrating Simba's journey from timid cub to mighty king with Tale of the Lion King, a live stage show inspired by the Lion King. Think live music and dance inspired by the cultural roots of this timeless story. If you're looking for adventure and heroic encounters, visit Avengers Campus to train with the Dora Milaje and see Black Panther in person. Now, if music is your thing, from June 1st to July 4th, you can enjoy Celebrate Soulfully offerings that coincide with Black Music Month. Check out Disney California Adventure Park, where they will offer daily live music celebrating the sounds of doo-wop and Motown, or go to downtown Disney District and check out the Soul of Jazz and American Adventure, a touring exhibit that illustrates the legacy and dynamic history of jazz. Something about seeing the past can help plant some seeds for what you might want to do in the future. And y'all know I'm a huge foodie and used to want to be a chef as a kid, so I know I check out downtown Disney District to enjoy some Creole cuisine at Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen, or to try to find some new favorites from local Black-owned food trucks. There are many ways to feed every part of your soul and reactivate that inner child in you throughout the Disneyland Resort, making this summer the perfect time to visit. Remember though, theme park admission and park reservations are required for park entry. Make sure to visit Disneyland.com for more details and theme park tickets. Think to yourself, what childhood dream can I bring to life this summer at Disneyland Resort? Thank you. No, I definitely need to put that into motion too, because it's like I'm trying to balance between, I don't want to show my son like all the time, but there are ways that you can still be private and also still, have that balance between, I'll show y'all what I want to show you, right? And then you don't know everything,
definitely.
right?
Oh, most definitely, because privacy is a big deal. Especially as, social media grows and people just like, they want more access. People are voyeurs. They're natural voyeurs. Like, people are nosy. I'm nosy.
Yes, right?
What you got going on? You're like, oh, that's where y'all went.
Why she ain't post her baby in like 5 weeks? What happened?
Yeah, I wonder how little man is doing.
That is so funny.
People feel so connected to you, and it's nothing malicious. Yeah. They just crave that relationship, and they feel like they know you. So they become invested. It's our baby now.
Has that ever happened to you? Like, have you ever been out and it's just like, how do you deal with that? Right. Cause I would say if I had like over half a million followers, I'm Instagram famous, right? Especially in this area. How do you deal with knowing or having built this following and knowing that like people know Helena as that nurse that can cook? Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, you know what? And this is probably the best question. You asked a bunch of lovely questions, but this is the best question that you've asked thus far, because I'm currently in this chapter. And I've been having a lot of discussions lately with my close friends and my close family. Like as our popularity grows a lot more, it's kind of, how do I describe this? It's so surreal. Like when you speak to your audience online, it's really hard for you to visualize beings, because sometimes they're just, they look like just usernames.
Yep.
And 4,000 likes just looks like a number. But when you begin to actually meet people in the street, people come up to you everywhere we go. We're being recognized. They come up to you. They're like, oh my God, like, I love what you're doing. I love that. At first I was like, oh my God, little old me, like me. And, you know, I'm learning to embrace it. I actually love meeting my supporters. It actually keeps me going because, believe it or not, there are some days I'm like, oh my God, it's so hard to keep going. And I've had days where I felt like giving up too. But when I meet my supporters, and whether it be at the grocery store, at the mall or whatever, and they say, I love you, I love your family, I love your kids, like I've made your recipes, like that lets me know that I'm doing something right. Sometimes you're having a bad day. Sometimes you didn't do your makeup. You're having like a real bummy day and you're like, oh my God, I hope that no one recognizes me on the street. But you know what? I have to give myself, I've learned that I'm giving myself permission to be human. We don't walk around with a beat face 7 days a week. Right. And like when you see me in the streets, I'm probably not going to be dressed to the nines, but I still appreciate the love and I appreciate the support.
Yeah, you talked about some challenges. What would you say is the biggest challenge that you're facing right now?
You know what? A lot of times we get frustrated because in our minds, we think that we should be here, but we're only here. And I feel like that frustration comes from our struggle with not trusting God enough. You say that you trust God, but if you're trusting his timing, then you won't be so frustrated and anxious about where you think you should be. So I feel like I get frustrated because I feel like I should be here already and I'm not there because I have so many other barriers. And I don't want to call them barriers because we're real women with real lives, and we can't all just drop everything and dedicate it to our business. We have families. We have friendships. We want to go out and have a good time.
Other things.
We have careers. So it's like I battle with being too hard on myself. And I really got to say, like, sometimes I have to really talk to myself and say, Helena, you are still working as a nurse. Like, slow down. And I know it's taking you a lot longer to like complete this goal, but it's better to take longer and reach somewhere where you want to be than to rush. Don't rush the process. I try to tell myself there's beauty in the process. There's beauty in the process. Be patient, slow down, give yourself credit for how far you've come along. And when you're a perfectionist like me, you tend to be really hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you should have did this. You should have this. Why haven't you done this yet? Do this, do this, do this. And I'm like, no, calm down. You literally have to talk yourself off the ledge, breathe, talk it out, and say, listen, you are doing the best that you can. Be patient and everything will fall into place.
You know what I tell myself, because I think that's something too that I also struggle with. We're in two different industries, but like I'm podcasting, like you're the foodpreneur space.
Yeah.
I have to tell myself, like, because I've been doing Dreams and Drive. So I launched it in 2016. So this is my 6th year doing it, right? But I tell myself, like, year 6, Oprah, well, I don't know this, but I just tell myself this. I don't know the exact date. I'm like, year 6, Oprah was still in the newsroom, right? And it's like, look at where she is now.
Right. And I feel like if you see, like, the part where I tell you, like, you really have to trust the process. Yeah. And I feel like if we knew, sometimes we get comfort out of knowing what the end goal is. Like,
you do not know.
I want to know 3 years, I'm going to be here. Whatever you see, whatever your ultimate list is, your bucket list of things that you want to accomplish. And sometimes you just have to trust the process and go through it. And also understand that everyone's journey is not the same. Yeah. Some people look like they just blew up overnight. They became an overnight success, but that overnight success was 15 years in the making. And they have like 15 years of ups and downs that you might not be privy to. So sometimes we do have to just sit down and check ourselves, because it's so easy to, like, look at somebody else's journey and compare it to yours, or think like, oh, I should have did this already. But no, you are walking in the path that you're supposed to walk, and your time will come. You just have to work for it.
And you might not even be ready for what's to come yet. Like, you know what I mean?
You might not even be ready. That is so true.
I think about things like just in the personal life, right? Like, I just moved into like a townhouse. And it's like, oh, I always wanted a townhouse. But I'm like, yo, was I really ready 5 years ago to have a whole townhouse? And, you know, like, there's just so many things. I get it. Like, you really have to, like, maybe ask yourself, maybe I'm not yet ready for it, but when it comes, I'm going to be ready for it. Has there been anything like that in your journey where something you've experienced now, maybe 3-4 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to know what to do with it?
Most definitely. This year has been really, really pivotal in terms of growth for me and my business. I'm getting a lot more publicity. And the truth is, I wasn't ready for this. Like 2 years ago, no way. Even I'm about to put out my first hardcover cookbook, and people have been asking me for a hardcover cookbook for like years now. Yeah. And when I look at the growth, I want to sit back and tell you, like, a couple nights ago, I was like, I'm working on my hardcover cookbook, and I'm like comparing it to my earlier projects. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way. And I'm like,
the ebook prepares you for this. And then it's
yes. Even down to the way I've perfected recipe writing. Sometimes you're getting better at something, but you don't realize it. And you don't realize it until you look back at how far you've come. So I always tell myself, you know what? This is why you have to trust the process, because there is no way I would have been ready to put out such a huge project. I've learned so much. I've met so many people. There are so many things that I know now that I have in my tool belt that I can use for this project that I didn't have 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So you're right about that. Sometimes you're not ready. And sometimes you just have to accept the fact that you're in the learning process, and everything that happens to you and for you is for your greater good.
So as we wind down, Helena, I cannot have you on the show and not ask you about this. People are probably like, revenue streams, working with brands, actually building a business from this. What were some of your biggest learnings as you really shifted your platform into a revenue generator for yourself?
One of the biggest lessons that I learned is to know your worth. Know your worth. And because a lot of the times in the beginning, I felt like I was undercharging because I felt like, you try to humble yourself.
Yeah.
You don't think you try to ask for what you think you can get, as opposed to asking what you know you deserve. And there's a gap there. And I think the most important thing is learning how to close that gap. And it's something that I'm still working on till this very day. And I feel like you never have it all together. You never know it all, because project that a brand approaches you with is sometimes unique. And sometimes it's unlike anything you've ever done before.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's still, a process where you have to say, okay, well, what did I learn before? How could I apply it to this project? And, it's just, you just got to keep learning. But most of all, like, know your worth. Know your worth. And that's such an important lesson, especially as content creators, to really hone in on.
Right. Because I'm in a podcast mastermind. Have you ever heard of Therapy for Black Girls?
Yes, I actually listened to that podcast.
Yeah, Joy. I'm in a mastermind with her, Joy, and Nikayla from Side Hustle Pro, and Jamila of Journey to Launch. And we're just always talking about these issues. And she's just like, Joy said, like, your price is what. Let me actually tell you what Joy said, because it's such a good quote that I just want other people to think about it. Because I was like trying to ask them, hey, a brand approached me to do a podcast sponsored episode. Like, what would you guys say, right? And she said to me, your price, she said, the rate is whatever someone is willing to pay, right? So you need to really think about what is your worth? Like, what do you think you're worth? And don't try to say, hey, I'm not here yet, so I can't charge this, right? Because if you say, hey, my price is $5,000 and the brand says, okay, no hesitation. You're like, I could have asked it for $10,000, right?
And you know what? Listen, I'm still there. Don't get me. I am still there. And it's an ongoing process. And there have been plenty of times where I feel like I got a yes way too quickly.
Too easy. Like you responded in 2 minutes.
They're like, yep, we're aligned. And I'm like, should have. Like, but you know what? Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. And you say, okay, they said yes very quickly to this. Let me add on another 30% the next time. You know what I mean? It's all a learning process.
It really is. It's all a learning process. So you mentioned earlier in the episode that you had, your Jamaican family really had this idea of what you should be, right? What is their reaction now to Helena the cook, the food blogger, the content creator, the Instagrammer?
So funny.
The Instagrammer.
Oh my God. And I spoke about that in the interview that I did with CNBC, because
that's
they were
a great
like,
one, you guys. I'll link to it because it really does a great highlight of your story.
Yeah, and they were so phenomenal with allowing me to tell my true story, because I applied to go to grad school. And I graduated nursing school on the dean's list. I had a 3.5 GPA. Like, I did good. I applied to a grad school and they rejected me. They were like, your GPA is 3.5 and we need a 3.55. And I was like, you know what? The truth is, I don't really want to do this anyway. So I just took the rejection and I was like, I don't want to do this. And then my mother was like, a couple weeks later, my mother was like, so whatever happens with the grad school, I was like, yeah, it didn't work out. Like, they said something ridiculous about them wanting 3.55 when I had 3.5. And she was looking at me like, so you're just going to take that? And I was like, yeah, like, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to just tell you this right now. Guess what? I'm not going to grad school. I don't want to go to grad school. I have no interest in going back to school. I don't want to do it. I am about to get my cooking thing popping. And my mother was like, you waste
my life.
And I was like, she said, you're going to what? Like,
Helena.
Do something. And I said it in my chest. I was like, yeah, what now? Guess what? Not going. And she was, and I was like, so she said, what's your goal? Like, what are you going to do with this cooking thing? I was like, well, eventually I'm going to quit my job. She said, what? She like,
you was trying to give your mother a heart attack. You were trying to give her a heart attack.
Yes. And she was like, how y'all going to manage? How you going to do? You have picnic, you have your husband, you have your old something. And you mean for telling us that? I was like, Mom, we have it figured out. Okay. Me and my husband have it figured out. And she was just looking at me like, after all I sacrificed. But now she is like, I am so proud of you. You go there. She's like, you made me so proud. I'm so, glad to see your success. And, dollars talk. Like Jamaican mothers, show them the dollars.
You're making money? All right.
Yes.
All right.
Then she's like, all right. Yeah, you have it. All right. Yeah, all right. Everything all right. So I was like, all right. And last night, I went to a really great event with the Prime Minister of Jamaica was there, and a lot of esteemed guests. And my mother was like, I cannot believe that your talent took you to this space.
Yes, I got my
picnic right there. And I was like, yeah, talent made room for me in spaces that I would have never been able to foresee a few years ago. So, you know what? So whoever is listening to this podcast right now, if you have a dream, go for it. Go for it. And there's a reason why God put that dream on your heart. So make sure you go for it without apology.
Well, that was a perfect way to lead us into our keys to success, right? If you want to be a dream driver, you have to have these keys to success. So Helena, what would you say every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road?
I want to say patience. A lot of people think that in order to be successful, it needs to be something that you can buy online or buy in the store. And a lot of the things that's going to make you successful and create a long-lasting impact are things you can't buy in the store. So I want to say patience. You are going to have a lot of ups and downs, and you need to be able to develop the what do I say? Like the mental strength,
the grit,
grit, to take you through the times where things aren't so great. Things are not going to be great every day, mentally, physically. Sometimes you fall in and out of love with something that you're passionate about, and that's okay. So you need your patience. You need a strong support system, whether that be your friends, your family, or some just networking in your niche.
Yeah.
People that relate to you. Find a good community. Sometimes it doesn't always have to be your friends and family because they might not understand the challenges that you face every day. Find a good networking community. Join that. Bounce ideas off of each other. Go to somebody and say, like, I'm going through this. Like, have you been through this before? Like, and how did you get through it? So everybody needs that. And the last thing I want to say, what you need to be successful is your passion. Yeah. Don't forget to bring your passion with you and never let anyone take your passion away from you. If there's something that's making you fall out of love with your passion, then you need to figure out a way to either delegate it. Sometimes it's tasks that get in the way of you creating, whether it be you have an influx of emails and it's taking time away, you're becoming too overwhelmed. Sometimes you need to delegate those tasks, but always do everything with the same passion that you had when you first started.
Yeah, I love those. You said patience, support system, and passion. What's next for Helena? What's next for that nurse that cooks? What is, let's say you're in the car, right? You're in front seat. You got your husband in the passenger seat. You got the kids in the back. Where y'all going?
We are going to a place where I cook for people. I want to release my hardcover cookbook finally. I've had so many setbacks with it. And I'm finally finishing it up. Thank God. It's been such a journey. But my hardcover cookbook, and I want to cook for people, whether that be a dinner party or just setting up shop in like a kitchen and just people come to enjoy my food. But people got to taste this greatness. You got to taste this greatness. I can see you on a
show. Like, I really feel like you have a personality to have like some kind of like cooking show. Maybe you could do like pop-up shops, right?
Yes, pop-up dinners.
Right, yeah, that would be cool.
Yes, and most definitely a lot more media opportunities just really getting my name out there, doing more interviews with beautiful podcasters like you. Thank you for sharing your platform with me. And just really just being me, you know what I mean? Yes. That's me, and taking better care of myself. That's what I see next. Sometimes we say like, oh, what's next? And we think in terms of the business, but personal growth is important too. So I want to also take better care of myself and be more patient with myself. So that's what's next for me.
Right. I just love your journey, right? And I just am so inspired to have you on the show today. So I just want to say thank you so much, Helena, for sharing your journey, right? And I hope our dream drivers are as encouraged and inspired as I am. But before we go, right, let us know where we can find you. If someone's listening and they don't know where they can find you online, give us the info.
Sure. You can find me on Instagram at That Nurse Can Cook. I also have a YouTube channel at That Nurse Can Cook. I'm on TikTok at That Nurse Can Cook as well. And I also have a website, thatnursecooks.com, with some recipes also.
All right. Make sure you guys follow her and get some inspiration for dinner tonight. Okay. Thank you so much, Helena.
Thank you, Raina.
All right, so that was a wrap for episode 314 with Helena. I hope you enjoyed hearing her dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. If you love this episode, stop what you're doing right now. Please share it with your own audience. I count on you guys each week to help us build the Dreams and Drive community. So post this to your Instagram page, put it on your Facebook, tweet it, LinkedIn it, send a link to a friend, an email. Tell people that they got to listen to episode 314 with Helena Faustin because they are going to be encouraged to put a dream of theirs in drive. If you want to join our email newsletter and get weekly updates via email, just sign up at dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. And remember, guys, if you know somebody or if you are somebody with a great story that you think would be great for the show, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. That's dreamsanddrive.com/pitch to pitch. As always, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 315. Bye, guys.